All right, so welcome to our session one of the 3-day mindfulness challenge. I'm excited about these 3 days because, for one, it's necessary in the fourth quarter to get laser focused in. The card that we just picked was my attention is focused on what I desire. And so that's going to be important and an important thread throughout these next 3 days. Of course, you want to have your pen, your pad, whatever you need. If y'all ladies don't have it now, make sure you grab it. And then, of course, I'll send, I'll attach some notes to this replay because this is going to live on YouTube. So it'll be in the notes section or the caption section. But tonight we're going to focus on how to manage chaos in the mind, right? Like how to get all of these thoughts that are everywhere, all over the place in one space. And so I want you to have your pen and pad handy dandy, and we're going to get right into it. If you're just now joining us in this replay, make sure that you add your gratitude in the comments. We always kick off with what you're grateful for. Make sure you do so. And for those of you guys who don't know me, I am Precious Bivings, affectionately known as Coach P, and I am the person that people call when they are ready to create amazing shit in their life, in their health, their wealth, and their relationships. All right, so let's get right into it. When we think about mindfulness, what I want to know from y'all is what's the first thing that comes up for you when you consider, like, I want to be more mindful? I want to be in this space of what? Fill in the blank for me. When you think about mindfulness, what is your actual desire?
Being deliberate.
Nice, 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 nice. Being deliberate. What else?
Being intentional.
Being intentional. Yes, 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 yes. And for me, when I was creating this layout for these 3 days, I really thought a lot about what, of course, what y'all said, being deliberate, being intentional, but also being in the now. Like how, if I'm mindful, that means I'm only focused in this moment. I'm mindful of what's around me. I'm mindful of all the things, not just what I can see, right? That's one sense, but what I can smell, what I can hear, what I'm feeling with my body, with my fingers, on my skin, even being so mindful that I can feel the straps of this shirt on my shoulders, where ordinarily I would just put my shirt on and it would feel like a second skin. But by the end of the day, depending on how much stress you done been through, how much excitement, how much wear and tear you done put through your clothes and all the things, you can feel the heaviness of your clothes by the time you get home. But being able to feel it right away allows for you to tap in, tune in, turn on, feeling this hair going across my face, feeling these earrings on my ear, like really being mindful of what's happening within my body, what I'm smelling, what's going on around me. And so when I think about, like, how do we manage mindfulness, the first thing for me is always thinking about, like, the thoughts, because the thoughts that go on a 1 gazillion times a day are all through your mind. And the first thing that I always like to focus in on is recognizing that these thoughts are not always representative of me. Not only are they not always representative of me, if I am in my proper position, then I recognize the detachment between me and my thoughts. And when I'm able to make that detachment between me and my thoughts, then I can actually observe, right? Observe my thoughts. I can watch my thoughts. I can be a watcher of what I'm thinking and therefore not get attached to every thought that I have. And so if I'm having one of those down days, for instance, and the thoughts are, man, the sky is falling, nobody's checking for my work, nobody's responding to my emails, I got to do this, I got to do that. There's all this negative talk around what's not happening. A part of me wants to identify with that. Like, oh, okay, well, if that's the case, then it must be true. If I'm thinking it and if I'm feeling it, it must be true. But no, that's not true at all. Like if I'm thinking it and it's not a thought that I desire to think, and it's not aligned with what I desire to have, let me find out if it's true. That's first things first for me. And in order for me to even find out if it's true, I must be willing to detach myself from the thought itself. And so when I'm looking at it, is it true? Is it true that nobody's checking for my work? Is it true that this thing is happening? Is it true that that thing is happening? Like really being able to take a step back and look forward at this thought that I'm having. Most times it's not true. And even if it is true, am I willing to accept it? And so tonight in this session, what I want you to write down, first things first, is surrender. That is your first word of tonight, surrender. And I want to talk about surrendering from a few different spaces. I want to talk about surrendering from the space of yielding, and I want to talk about this surrender from the space of releasing, letting go. So when you consider the chaos in the mind, what would you label as chaos or chaotic thoughts for yourself personally? Give me some thoughts that you've had that you're like, okay, this is ridiculous. And it could be a phrase of thoughts, or it could be the amount of thoughts. But give me an instance where you felt like, okay, there's a lot of shit happening in my mind. Let me go have a seat. Let me go clear my head.
I've realized that one of the triggers for me that starts rumination or the negative thoughts is if I feel slighted or disrespected in some way. And so
Mm,
I could have had a minor situation, um, but because I have a tendency to sometimes look through a negativity bias, I will assume that the other person had negative intent, and then
mm,
I'll go into this spiral of um, a fictitious situation that never happened, but it's like
mm,
I'm replaying in my brain what I should have said and what I could have said and all kinds of foolishness. Um, and then, like you were saying earlier, when I start to reflect on my thoughts and figure out whether or not they're actually true, it's like, Shanique, you're never gonna have this conversation. One, so I don't know why you're practicing this in your brain. But then the other part is like, um, how do you know that that's actually the person's intent? What if that's not what the person meant? And then I come to a place of, you know, what their intent was is none of your business in actuality, because it doesn't matter.
mm,
Because the way
mm,
people show up has everything to do with them and nothing to do with you. And so rather than taking everything personally, you need to kind of detach from the things and
mm,
realize that um this whole thing in your brain right now is made up. It's just made up. And it's funny that you're talking about the things we focus on, because here lately, that is the message I've had for myself. Like, Shanique, if you continue to focus on these negative, fictitious situations, then that's what you're going to get more of. But
mhm.
if you want things to be different, you have to shift your focus. So,
And thank you for sharing that. And even in that instance, though, what about when it is true? You know what I'm saying?
hmm,
Like when you felt it, you saw it, no, you didn't confirm it with a conversation, but now there's a whole bunch of chaos in your mind about what I should have said, how I should have said it. I shouldn't have never let this be said. I should have checked this, I should have checked that. A lot of times those thoughts come up because one, we didn't say what we actually wanted to say. And we
hmm,
don't feel like we stood up for ourselves, or we don't feel like we showed up for ourselves. And then the
hmm,
second thing is the rumination over and over and over again is like, even if you never have that conversation, I'm not satisfied. My ego is also not satisfied. And now there's chaos in my mind. And the first thing, because I definitely have had those thoughts probably as recent as last week. And the first thing that I like to do, Shanique, in that instance is like surrender the idea, to your point, surrender the idea that I have to have a conversation. Because for me, I'll lose sleep with the chaos in my mind if I'm not willing to become satisfied in whatever this thought is. If the thought is, you know, I should have said this and I should have said that, and now I feel like they have the advantage, or they have said something to me that I felt disrespectful, or I didn't realize it until I walked away that, dang, they said that this way, I should have said such and such. Being able to surrender the idea that I have to have a conversation, also surrendering to the idea that I get to have a conversation,
hmm,
because both desires are important. One, if it's someone that I care about and I love and I'm in relationship with, it's important for me to surrender to the idea that a conversation can happen. Now the question is, what do you desire? versus feeling crazy because I didn't say it in the moment and now it's too late and now the conversation is over. Because no matter what, you still gonna carry that shit around with you the next time you see them. If they say something even remotely similar, it could go down.
Mhm.
Right? And so, and they don't even realize that they hit the nail on the head last time and triggered some shit. And so now saying something else because they went unchecked because they thought it was okay. So subconsciously that was a green light for them to keep moving in that direction every time they see you. And now that chaos has built into a volcano,
Mhm.
right? And so the surrendering piece is also yielding to the idea that we ain't got to have no conversation, right? But also surrendering to the idea that I can, it's possible. And so I had a situation recently with a new friend that didn't say anything egregious per se, but said some slickety slick. And I practiced this through talking with another friend that's unrelated to this friend, and made an executive decision that it was best that I surrender having a conversation about it because this early in the game, I recognize we probably can't be friends anyway. Because this kind of shit can't exist in my friendships. And so, but if it had been a friend who I had more stake in the game with, I would have surrendered to the idea that a conversation is possible and then asked myself what I desire. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And so the only thing I would ask you in the instance that you talked about is not to judge Shanique around the rumination. It's normal. It's okay to rehearse it over and over again. Also, it's okay to not, right? It's not necessary to rehearse it. It's not healthy to rehearse it all day and all night. And I've done that. But also not to judge yourself for wanting to, because now the real question is, and you're surrendering, asking yourself, what do you need from this? Why
Mm.
do we keep talking about this over and over again? Why do we keep replaying how we should have said? Do you feel unsatisfied with how we showed up? What can we do now that would make you feel satisfied? Would it be a conversation? Would it be writing a letter, getting out the feelings and then burning the letter? Would it be sending a text message? Like, what do you need to satisfy this
Mm.
versus get over it? Because no, not fair. Something happened. And I ain't say all that I now know I want to say, or I didn't say all that I felt like I could say. And so
Mhm.
now I want to be able to communicate that. How does that feel?
Um, it's funny and at the same time, it makes a whole lot of sense. I say that it's funny because, you know, I often joke with people, um, that, like, I grew up in these streets, so I stay on ready. And so like that's what the rumination is. The rumination
Yeah.
is like, yeah, because when I see you, it's on sight. But then, but I've now learned that like Shanique, half of this is probably not going to happen. More than
To
likely.
be on sightness.
Yeah, you too old to be out here popping people in all kind of stuff. But in the same token, I'm like, I do often judge myself for the
Hmm.
rumination. I'm like, Shanique, like, what are you doing? Like this
Hmm.
type of negativity, if you're gonna sit here and dwell in this negativity, then that's what you're gonna get. And so I'm often trying to suppress the feelings. And then I
Hmm.
realize that the more and more that I try to suppress it, the more and more it happens. And sometimes it feels like out of control, like I can't even stop myself from
Hmm.
from having the rumination. Um, but hearing what you said about like surrendering it and feeling like it's actually okay if you're having the rumination, it's not a bad thing. Um, but in the same token, like what do I need? I don't think I've ever taken that step. Like what do I need to be able to move forward past these emotions that are very valid?
Hmm. For sure. And you deserve that. And also, like, I want you to be mindful of the type of parent that you are to Shanique, and the type of like tone you take with her, because Even if she want to fuck somebody up on sight. Like, and even if it's never gonna happen, it's okay. In the mind of it all, if I catch you in the streets, I'll smack the fire out of you. If that's what she's feeling, she's not. You're her parent outside here in the real world, so you'll never let her walk up and smack the fire out of somebody. But if that's what she needed to say to get off, to get that emotion off, that's okay too. Because now we're not just gonna leave her at that. We're also gonna we just based on what we just talked about. We're going to also guide her to what do you need? Versus fussing at her like, well, if you keep doing that, then that's what you're going to get. If you keep being negative, then you're going to keep getting negative. Not fair. She ain't trying to be negative. She trying to defend and also work through these emotions that just happened in
Mhm.
her old self and her new self. And she's trying to make these behaviors congruent without one feeling like a punk because her ego has a story around what it means to let people say and do whatever they want to say and do and what disrespect means and what disrespect is. And so the chaos for me is consistently built on a number of things, right? Ego talking, thoughts that are not mine as in my new self, also not mine as in they could be from the collective consciousness. Shit, it's all kind of thoughts flying around in the world that we pick up on, just like it's all kind of particles in the air that we breathe in. People don't see thoughts that way because it's so personal that we think every thought is ours, and then we might judge it or be upset about it or criticize it. And it's like, wait a minute. Anytime there's chaos in the mind, the thing that I want y'all to remember, want us to remember, that chaos in the mind is also, y'all heard me say this before, and specifically in 2021, when we were talking about all these actions and all this stuff is information. So chaos in the mind is an indicator, like pain is an indicator, like fear is an indicator, like worry is an indicator. Any emotion that we feel is also an indicator that is providing information. And that information, that this particular chaos, especially in your example, Shanique, and thank you for letting us eat from your plate, that that indicator from the chaos of ruminating around what I should have said and how I should have said it indicated I'm not satisfied with how this exchange happened, and there's something more that needs to take place. I've been having a revolving thought and conversation for since August. It's October. And it for the whole month of August, it wore me out. I'm surprised I didn't have bags under my eyes going into celebrating 40. It wore me thin. Then September, it was all about me and my birthday, and then it didn't have no room in my mind to show up. And as soon as October 1st came, it was like, hey, remember me? I'm the thought that said that you should have done it. I was like, Lord, here it is back again because it wasn't satisfied. And then I wrote it down. I wrote down exactly, and here is tool and framework. I wrote down exactly what I want to say and what I plan to say because there is a future conversation that's going to happen. And then I gave myself permission to be at peace if the conversation never happens. So I wrote down exactly what I wanted to say, exactly how I wanted to say it. And then I gave myself permission, right, for this conversation that if it never happens, I am taking myself off the hook. And that in itself allowed for me to have more mindfulness because now I have more space in my brain, in my mind, but also I have more peace and less carrying on, to your point, Shanique, about some shit that don't really matter, right? In the grand scheme of things, I can see in my today self, in my 40 becoming 41 every year, every day self, I can see that this doesn't matter for my well-being, my bills, how I see myself, the money I make. It doesn't matter in that way, but psychologically and emotionally, on that level, it absolutely matters. And so just because it doesn't matter in the external world and it doesn't, push or break or make anything in the external world, doesn't mean that it's not important to my psychological health and well-being in terms of how I handle this because it was a part of chaos in my mind. And in order for me to manage that chaos, I must address it, and not from a critical place about how I'm doing it or why I'm doing it or any of those things, but mainly about what it is that I need, asking the question, what do you need? If I was a friend to me and I heard my friend, my chaotic brain going on and ruminating and da 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 da, I would probably grab her by the arms real softly and be like, hey, what's going on? What do you need? And then my brain goes, da 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 da. Okay, no problem. Let's talk about it. Let's write it out. What do you want to say? I want to say, bitch, you got me fucked up, or whatever it is, right? Catch me on the side and it's on site, whatever it is. I get to write that down because now at least where is it now? Outside of me. So when
Mhm.
I see that person, I also don't carry as much heat because now it's outside of me. And then if time or an opportunity presents, I'll have the right language to say. I'll be able to speak from a very vulnerable and powerful place. I'll be able to say, hey, your tone offended me versus you got me fucked up. Because those are two different things, right? They could mean the same, but also they're going to translate differently. So now I can speak how I feel without having to apologize later. And I can say, hey, your tone offended me. Where did that come from? Wherever it came from, please don't speak to me that way again. I enjoy our relationship and da da da, or whatever it is, right? Now I can speak from that place because now I'm giving myself an opportunity to gain the language. I hope that was
Mhm.
helpful.
Yes, yes.
Perfect. Awesome. You got anything for me, Renee?
I think I ate from that. I think I'm
Perfect. Nice. Nice, 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 nice. Perfect. So the framework that I want us to take away from tonight's session is really about when we consider managing chaos in our minds, the surrender by yielding and surrender by releasing, right? So yielding to the fact that, hey, listen, I can have a conversation, surrender to the fact that I don't have to, or whichever way that goes for you. But the most important part is recognizing that I get to surrender to, and I get to surrender by way of. So that surrendering looks like allowing that chaos, acknowledging that chaos, and allowing it to pass by you, right? Because sometimes it's just chatter in the brain and it don't mean nothing and it's not attached to anything significant. And you can acknowledge, man, I'm tripping. I got a lot going on in my brain and a lot of this shit don't even matter. And then I can manually release it. Let me release that out of my mind, right? I can release that through meditation. I can release that through writing down every thought that I'm having. Let me write down all the thoughts that I'm going to have for the next 10 minutes. So I put a timer on my phone. Let me time at 10 minutes. This is the thought. This is a thought. Oh, this is a thought I had earlier. This is a thought I had yesterday. This is a thought. All these thoughts, now they're out of my brain, right? I'm surrendering those thoughts, releasing those thoughts that way, right? Another opportunity is once I've acknowledged it, if it's a story, if it's something that happened to me that I don't feel satisfied with, writing that letter, allowing myself to get it out. And it doesn't even have to be a formal letter, but writing out, what do I actually want to say? What didn't I say that I want to say now? And then surrendering to the idea that I can have a conversation or not. And then allowing myself to be let off the hook either way. And releasing any judgment that comes along with that, and releasing any need to um kick my own ass about it. And meditation is a beautiful way to manage chaos because it allows for you to see the thoughts kind of go by like a train. I think therapists talk a lot about that. I know my therapist did. Like, when these thoughts come, are you able to just see them pass by, pass by, pass by, versus attaching to them? And the biggest part that I love to practice is being a witness of my thoughts, because that immediately helps me to detach from believing that I am the thought or the thought belongs to me because I had it. Every air that you breathe, you didn't contribute to it. When there's pollution in the air, when there's particles in the air and you breathe in, that's not yours, but it's the air that went into your body and out for your lungs. It's the same for thoughts. There's a collective consciousness of thoughts happening all over the place. People are thinking beside you, around you, in the same building as you, in the same Uber, Lyft, in the same concert hall. People are thinking all over the place. And so thoughts are everywhere. It's energy. And every thought you have doesn't belong to you. And so once we're able to practice from that space, then it gives us also then a full detachment. Like, oh, okay, I don't know where this thought came from, but and then of course, not to mention whatever downloads, whatever spiritual downloads you might have, that are also coming up, that also can come in the form as thought or feelings or some kind of sixth sense. What you got, Shanique?
No, I don't know if you've noticed over the years, but I'm a clown, like big time. And
Of
so
course.
as you're saying the thoughts you have do not belong to you, I'm thinking to myself, here in New York, you see all kinds of madness and craziness. And so a lot of times when I'm on my way to school, I see people's weaves and things like that. And I'm like, girl, what made you think that looked good when you got up in the morning? And so now I'm like laughing to myself because I'm like, just because you had that thought, Shanique, it doesn't mean that it was yours. You know.
That definitely was yours, Shanique. That was yours that had your name on it. But rule number one, identify your own thoughts. No, I found myself like being in that space. And I was just watching myself. I was witnessing it, but I was witnessing myself like go in on everybody passed by, like, what were you thinking? Who told you to put that in? Why did you? And I'm talking about criticizing everything. And I was like, Precious, all right, that's enough. Because I know that habit of criticism because I criticize myself in that same way. So I've been very mindful to like when I see myself like going in and going on the path, I'm like, hey, bring it back. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Let them people dress how they want to dress. If her ass cheeks want to hang out and it look like that, it's okay. So I get it. I'm with you 100%. Y'all got any other questions for me or anything else you need from tonight's session?
I think as you said, like what do you need?
Mhm.
Here lately I've been trying to process my thoughts in that way when I get into that rumination space. And one of the things that came up is my 7-year-old self and feelings of rejection or like,
Mm.
you know, I'm always trying to be nice to people. So why are people responding to me this way? And I
Mm.
think that my older self, like automatically, I will say to her, like, those people, they don't matter, what have you. But I feel like I'm not doing a good job of acknowledging the fact that she was hurt at the end of the day.
Mhm,
And I
mhm,
think that ends up showing up in the way that I respond to people now.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
and that's why I have a tendency to take like the disrespect and the slights so personally because I'm like, I'm trying to be nice. I think I'm a good person. I think I'm being supportive. I think I'm being kind. And so why do you respond the way that you respond? Or why do you do the things? Why do people treat me in a way where I feel like they're taking advantage or
mm,
they're being disrespectful? And that's what comes up when I ask my younger self, what do you need? And sometimes I'm not sure how to respond to that.
mhm. That's really good. Um, I think the reinforcement is important, right? So reinforcing that people's attitudes come in all shapes and sizes. Even when we're being good, there still will be people who will show up in the opposite. And I'm here to protect you that when you're being good to people and people take advantage of that, then I'm going to make sure that they don't get a chance to do that again. That is how I talk to my younger self. It's the what do you need? Because the 7-year-old still didn't quite answer what it needs. So then it becomes again, so what do you need? Do you need a
Mm,
hug? Do you need an apology? Do you need You want to color? You want ice cream? Like, what do you need? Once there's been a understanding of this is not your fault and we will still be nice and I'm going to protect you. I got your back. Because you, me, all of us, we are our best parents, guardians, big sisters, best friends, all of those things. And meaning that when outside influences start to impede on, but I'm being so nice. Why is everybody being so mean to me? Why would this person not recognize that I'm a good friend? They say they never had good friends. And I'm being a good friend, I think. And they're telling me I'm a good friend, but they're not treating me well. Well, then now we got to make some decisions. We got to not. Oh, this is so good. Something just came through. We got to not allow for, my goodness, we got to not allow for that inner child to be left without feeling protected or also without the solution to what do you need? Because even in this instance, the 7-year-old shared like, but this is how it makes me feel. And then you get to ask, I hear you, I understand, but what do you need? Do you need this? Do you need that? And start to like list options and see what lights up in your body. Because so before I go forward, that's a way to respond. How does that feel?
That feels good. That feels good.
Okay. What was processing down as I was speaking at the same time was a version of me being 5 years old and these sisters named Mimi and Cree, and they lived in the hood with us, and they always had food, and we didn't always have food. Mimi and Cree. I don't know what their real names was for nothing, but they always played with me and my brother, and they was the only girls that played with us. And their mama always had oatmeal. She never had no other kind of food, but she always had oatmeal, and she always made the best oatmeal. And we ate. She fed us like we was her kids too. And I remember one time, one of the girls, Mimi or Cree, they hurt my feelings. And I went crying to my grandma. Grandma, they hurt my feelings. I don't never want to play with them again. And so I forget what she said in that instance, but maybe a day or so passed, a week or so passed, and I was ready to be their friend again because I done got over it. And I'm like, Grandma, can you drop me off so I can go play with Mimi and Cree? Why the hell you want to go play with them little bitches and they hurt your feelings? And I'm 5, so I don't know, like, I don't even know what I did wrong and why I can't go play with them again. And I don't even understand why she's upset that I want to. And so that 5-year-old though still exists to this day. That when someone hurts her feelings, what my grandmother in all her chaos was trying to show me was that I was worthy of, I was more valuable than how they were treating me and that they didn't deserve to play with me. But we were kids and 5 years old, so damn, give us a chance. Nobody knew what they was doing. But in hindsight, clearly through her own trauma and all the other stuff, if we fish through all that, rinse it off, put some baking soda on it, let it dry, spray it down with apple cider vinegar, we will see what she was trying to say, which is that, like, you deserve better than that. Like, if somebody hurts your feelings, they don't get to play with you again. That's not how this works. And I didn't understand that. She definitely didn't explain it to me well. And so I'm saying that to say that there's a 5-year-old that still lives within me that still doesn't understand that concept. She still thinks, well, I know they hurt my feelings, but maybe if I go be nice to them, then they'll realize that I'm a good friend and they won't do that again. And we can be friends. And then my feelings would get hurt again. Right? And maybe if I do such and such subconsciously, maybe if I have so as an adult, here's what it looks like. Maybe if I have a conversation, because maybe they didn't understand. And we have a conversation. And then they do this shit again. And it's like, hey, maybe we should have another no more conversations. People know what they be doing. People know what they be doing. They got the same guidance in you that you have in them. And so in that, back to the point about your 7-year-old, now we get to protect the 7-year-old Shanique by being able to say, it wasn't right how they treated you. Their tone wasn't okay. And at the end of the day, You deserve better than what they gave you. And I'm gonna make sure that you get better than that. So the next time something happens, I'm gonna make sure that I say something that huh?
I said it's on site.
That too.
Gangster.
Tell a baby how to fight.
Gangster.
That too. So clearly you get the drift. I don't have to go any further. Perfect. That's good, Shanique. Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. All right. Anything else? What y'all got?
No.
Feel satisfied?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. What's your takeaway from tonight, Renee?
I think the biggest takeaway is to be intentional about giving myself permission to take those 3 seconds and decide, like you said, first know that I can respond, acknowledge that I can, and then decide if I want to. This week, these situations coming up because I'm being social with people now. I'm coming into contact with all kinds of personalities, and I really don't. Naturally, I don't. This is going to sound hard, but I'm not caring about how a person feels.
Sure.
I mean, I care, but So one friend, this whole game thing, in passing, we said, "Oh, we have to go to a football game together." So when I decided to go to this, she says, "Well, I saw that you went to the football game, but you didn't call me, and you ignored my call when I called you. Girl, you're not even that important to me. Stop." So I thought that she sent me this long text message about how I didn't tell her, and now I'm ignoring her calls, and so I didn't respond because I knew it wasn't going to come out the correct way. But I didn't respond out of malice because I wanted to curse her out. Like, and no offense, but to me, this was no offense now. This was very lesbian-like behavior. Like, you're trying to control me. I got to call you, tell you where I'm going. Where are you? So that's really how it made me feel.
First things first. Let's get one thing straight. First things first. I'm not sure why you said twice, no offense, because you were talking about lesbian behavior. That's number one. Number two, let's be clear that yes, some lesbians are possessive, but that'll never be a part of my character. Okay.
But it was like,
Number three, I'm
okay.
not finished with you yet, Renee. I'm not finished with you
Okay,
yet.
the
Number
stereotypical.
three,
I'm putting stereotypical in there.
exactly.
Okay, stereotypical.
Yes, because number
I'll
three,
say that.
there are friend girls who act that way too, who want to only be not non-lesbian women who only want you in, like, hey, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you text me? Just possessive people in general. That
And
I've
honestly,
experienced.
from my experience, and all I kept thinking about was my time of incarceration, how girls did that to other ones. Like, you're mine.
I get that. Yeah,
You know
I get
what I
that.
mean? So
Yeah.
that's really what I meant. So it triggered something. I was like, ooh. And she's a big girl.
Can't even put this on YouTube now because of Renee's inflammatory.
Don't edit.
Gotta cut this off at a certain point for YouTube.
These thoughts and views do not represent Coach B.
No one can see this because Shanique, why was she finna call this lady a big butch? I know, Renee. I have to cut this whole video. I can't even put this in the regular replay. It's gotta be edited. Because Renee was finna call her a big butch.
I'm guilty. I was.
Butch, Renee.
It made me so mad. Like, I was so mad about it. And so it took me a couple of days, and I texted her back, and I was like, just tread lightly, Renee. I said it was a last minute trip. Then nothing else. So she responded back, "Oh, I guess I should be grateful for your response, even though you didn't address my entire text." So I'm still mulling over the response.
Definitely. Let me just stop this recording so I ain't got to do too much editing because this is some